Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure for all of us here to welcome you to this town hall. I'm Carlin Aguilera Fort, and I am the Deputy Superintendent of Schools and School Operations in the San Francisco Unified School District. I am also serving as the moderator for this evening event. We all recognize that these are times when uncertainty is giving us so many questions. And today we will be focusing on our budget and stabilization efforts. We will hear from our superintendent, Dr. Maria Su. We'll also hear from Ms. Mele Lau-Smith, who will provide a brief budget overview, and then we will transition into Q&As with preset questions. While we may not get to all of the questions tonight, we hope to demonstrate our commitment to transparency. The questions will be posted on our website along with the recording of this town hall. Now, let's get into it, and it is my pleasure to welcome our superintendent, Dr. Maria Su. But before we welcome Dr. Su, I would like to highlight these important services. We have translation services, and I would like to ask our interpreters to please highlight the information here. Interpreters, please. Then you have the information right here, and you have the QR code so that you can request translation services. We'll leave it right there for a short time so that you can look at those phone numbers and call if you need translation. Thank you. Please make sure to gather this info. Here are again the QR codes for the YouTube live stream, the information webpage, and the questions as well. You can still submit some questions. We may not be able to respond them tonight, but you have that info. Now, I would like to welcome Ms. Mele Lau-Smith, who will provide us with the budget overview. Ms. Lau-Smith, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Carlin Aguilera Fort, and good evening to all the San Francisco Unified School District students, families, and community members. My name is Mele Lau-Smith, and I am thankful to have the opportunity to share information about the district's budget. First, I will start with explaining where the district monies come from. The district's budget is made up of federal, state, and local monies. The federal monies make up 5% of our budget, the local monies make up 25% of our budget, and the state monies make up the majority of our budget at 70%. The state provides funding to school districts based on what is called the Local Control Funding Formula, or LCFF for short. The LCFF funding formula is broken up into 3 categories. The base grant makes up 88% of the school district's funding. The supplemental grants make up 10% of the school district's LCFF funding, and the concentration grant makes up 2% of LCFF funding. The base grant is meant to fund the basic priorities of the district: school staff, central support, and operations. The supplemental grant, which are additional dollars, they must be focused on providing more services and programs to the state-defined focal groups, low-income youth, foster youth, and English language learners. And the concentration grant provides additional funding for schools and programs that have a concentration of the state-defined focal groups. But we as a school district have expanded our focus to include African American students, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander students, and students with individualized education plans, or IEPs. Because the LCFF funds come from the state, our projections are based on budget information we receive from the governor. We have to monitor the governor's budget proposals carefully to inform our revenue projections for the upcoming school year. The governor's initial budget proposal shows nearly $119 billion in Prop 98 funding for California schools in 25-26. Every year, the governor releases a May revise, which will indicate if those initial projections have gone up or down. In the event the governor's revenue projections go down, we will have to make more cuts for next year. Of course, if the projections go up, that's good news for our fund balance. However, we will still need to make cuts. We are fortunate of a district to have additional sources of funds, many of them made possible by the generosity of voters, which many of you are those voters. And those include the Public Education Enrichment Fund, known as PEEF for short. We receive about $90 million a year from the PEEF funds. $45 million of that goes to sports, both athletics and PE, libraries, arts, and music. And the other $45 million can be used to support other services to our students and our families. In addition, we have two separate parcel taxes that support our educator salaries. These parcel taxes help support our goal of a qualified teacher in every classroom. The Student Success Fund also brings in close to $15 million a year in grants directly to school sites. And unlike other school districts, SFUSD owns buildings that we lease, and we also generate revenue through our facility use permits at our schools. Together, these generate about $10 to $12 million a year. Now, even with all these revenue sources, we find ourselves in a place where we need to make cuts. And you could be asking, how did we get here? So in 2018, the voters approved Proposition G parcel tax, which was a parcel tax for educator salaries. However, the monies were impounded due to a lawsuit, but the district was committed to raising educator salaries and began to use its rainy day reserves and other reserves to pay for the salary increases. In October 2021, the State Department of Education, also called CDE, assigned 2 fiscal experts to assist the district in achieving balanced operations and restoring our reserves. At the same time, the district prevailed in the Prop G lawsuit and funds were released, and as a result, we were able to restore our rainy day reserves and create a one-time fiscal stabilization reserve. In June 2023, as one-time COVID monies were coming to an end, the district developed a strategic plan to spend down its restricted reserve and to balance its budget. In December of that same year, we identified more than $180 million in budget reductions. 135 of those dollars were ongoing to offset our most recent salary increases, as investing in our educators continues to be an essential investment to having a qualified teacher in every school and qualified in every classroom and qualified staff in every school. In May of last year, 2024, the CDE changed the certification to the district's second interim report from qualified to negative, changed the status of the fiscal experts to fiscal advisors, and then required the district to develop a fiscal stabilization plan, which the Board of Education approved in June 2024. The plan required $113 million of cuts for the school year 25-26 and further cuts in school year 26-27. Now, I have shared some of how we were funded, the history of how we got to where we are today, and now I want to talk a little bit about our revenues, expenditures, and our fund balance, which is essentially our savings from year to year. As you know, our revenues are driven by our student enrollment, and as our enrollment has declined, so has our revenue. In this slide, the blue bar represents the revenue we have received each year since 2018. The yellow bar represents the fund balance, or the savings from year to year. And as you can see, the blue bars have stayed relatively steady with an increase due to one-time COVID dollars. From 2019 to this year, the district has had a relatively large savings, as illustrated by the yellow bars. However, the red line represents our expenditures, and you can see that starting in 2019, our expenditures began to outpace our revenues. The one-time COVID dollars help balance the budget, but with these dollars expiring, our expenditures will significantly outpace our revenue, and without cuts based on our projected expenses, we will not be able to pay our bills in 26-27. As we implement our fiscal stabilization plan, we have to reimagine how we use our resources so that we can continue to deliver on our promise. Our school site staffing model has been shared with schools, which shows which school site positions are funded through our LCFF base funds, our supplemental and concentration grants, as well as our local, state, and federal restricted funds. It also shows the specific restricted school site grants or funds that a school site might have. You will notice that the PTA funds are not on this list, and that is because PTA funds are held by the nonprofit organizations that support a specific school community, and that is the community that determines how those funds are spent. I also wanted to share the district's budget timeline. On March 8th, we started off the school site planning process, and much of what I've shared today, I shared at that summit. This week, the board approved the second interim report, and in May, the governor's May revise will be released, which could impact our budget negatively or positively, and we will let you know either way. As I mentioned, this week we shared the second of 3 interim reports to the Board of Education. Interim reports provide a snapshot of the state of the district's budget by identifying changes to revenues, expenditures, and fund balance. They also provide multi-year projections, also called MYPs, for the following 2 fiscal years. The MYPs are based on the most current financial data, and this is what informs the certification that the district reports to the California Department of Education. The certification is our analysis of our ability to meet our financial obligations. The possible certifications are positive, where the district will be able to meet its financial obligations, or qualified, where the district may or may not be able to meet its financial obligations, or negative, where the district will not be able to meet its financial obligations. For the second interim report, the board approved a negative certification based on the multi-year projections without cuts. As you can see in rows D and E of the table on the left, the multi-year projections without cuts table, that our expenditures will continue to outpace our revenues, and we will run out of money, that's the numbers in red, in 26-27. The second interim report showed us that we are moving along the fiscal stabilization plan on this difficult path, because you can see in the multi-year projections with cuts table, we are able to make our expenses in 26-27, and we are not in the red in our fund balance in row E. So we have started on this difficult path. We are doing the hard work, and we are getting there. And some of you may know that I grew up in San Francisco, and I am a proud SFUSD graduate, but I'm an even prouder parent of 4 SFUSD graduates who are thriving. During my 20+ years as a parent, I was a school site council chair for 9 years. I know the work ahead of us is hard. I also know that we will approach these difficult decisions the San Francisco way, working together and being creative and strategic in our solutions. I am thankful to you all for participating and bringing your voice to this process. And I know you all are committed, along with all of us, to work together to serve all of our students and families. I will now turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Sue.
Thank you, Melly. And thank you, Dr. Aguilera-Fort. Can you see me? Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. This is Maria Sue. I am your humbled superintendent. Thank you to our 9,000 employees serving our 50,000 students each and every day. As a school district, we only exist to improve student outcomes. We are committed to our ambitious goals of third grade literacy, eighth grade math, and college and career readiness. The road ahead for us is rough. There's no sugarcoating this. We have to make difficult decisions to stabilize our school district. As you've already heard from Ms. Lau-Smith, the grim realities of where we are in our budget and how we got here and what we need to do to get out of it. As she stated, we have to make a $114 million reduction in our budget in order for us to stand on our own 2 feet. We are going through the most challenging moments of SFUSD's history. I do not believe we have ever had to make such large reductions in the district before. This is why this feels so painful. This is why it feels so unsettling for so many people, both parents and students and our staff. I see it, I hear it, and I feel it. However, I truly believe that as a community, we can create a school district that our students and staff deserve. Together, we can make this happen because this reduction represents 10% of our budget. But that means that there's the remaining 90% left of our budget that I really want to engage everyone in a radical reimagination process with me. Really come together and think how we as a community can invest this $1.3 billion of our budget back to supporting our students so that we can truly achieve those big, audacious student outcome goals that we have. We can only get there by being a fiscally solvent district. That is going to be the first step. We must regain our autonomy so that we can make strategic investments for our students' success. I know these are tough times, and I've heard all of your questions. I've received them in our emails, and hopefully tonight, what we will do is answer some of those questions. At a minimum, start the process of shedding light into the decision-making process that we in the district have gone through. As Dr. Aguilera-Fort shared, this is just the start of our conversation. We are going to attempt to answer the hundreds of questions that we've already received. And when we don't, we're going to post all these questions because quite frankly, you're all asking us the same things. And we want to make sure that we are honest with our responses and that we are timely in getting you the feedback that you want. I want to reiterate that we are in this together. We are, at the end of the day, a unified school district. And when we come together and do this, we will be able to ensure that all of our students will be successful at the end of the day. Thank you very much. And now we will transition into the Q&A part. So I'm going to hand this back to Dr. Aguilera-Fort.
Thank you, Dr. Sue. As Dr. Sue stated, as part of tonight's virtual town hall, we are going to the section of Q&A. We have implemented a public survey to gather your questions. As of this afternoon, we have received 244 responses to the survey and questions. Our team has been reviewing questions and have organized them into the following categories: site discretionary funds, hiring freeze and layoff, budget cuts, SFUSD programs, and our long-term fiscal picture and strategy. We will be highlighting as many questions as possible tonight, and I will be asking my colleagues to answer them. The questions were selected based on the following criteria. 1, the most frequently asked questions. We will share the number of questions in each category we have received. Second, representation across sites and grade levels. And third, questions from parents and staff. To do this part of the program, I would like to invite Dr. Sue, Ms. Melelau Smith, and Ms. Amy There, our Associate Superintendent of Human Resources, to join me on camera. First, we will address the questions related to site discretionary funds. We received a total of 64 questions about using PT8 and Title I funds. Additionally, we have also received many emails from concerned parents and school communities on this topic. The first question is from a parent at Argonne, and Dr. Sue, this question is for you. The question reads the following. Why is the district using a hiring freeze to prevent parent-teacher organizations, PTO, PTAs, from paying for intervention specialists and class size reduction teachers? These positions and roles already exist in other schools. Dr. Sue.
Sorry. Thank you, Dr. Aguilera-Fort. I assume this question is about our supplemental hiring guidelines. So I want people to know that the guidelines provide, the intent for the guideline is to provide clarity on how schools can use their site discretionary funds to pay for additional staff outside of their district staffing allocations. Please know that the main purpose of the guide is to ensure position control in the district and to allow the district to have qualified teachers in every classroom. There are many positions that schools can pay for that are listed in the guide, such as instructional aid, family liaisons, elementary advisors, clerks, community schools coordinators, assistant principals. There are many positions. However, I do want to note that we are in the midst of a national teacher shortage. We are asking everyone to support us in holding off on hiring certificated teachers until we, the district, are able to fill our classrooms. We need to ensure that our classrooms have qualified teachers because, once again, that's the only way for us to meet the goals. We currently have 98 classrooms that do not have a teacher in them, and that is not okay.
Thank you, Dr. Sue. The next question is for Ms. Melelau Smith, and this is a question from a parent at Starkeen, and is related to budget development. Why is San Francisco Unified School District putting restrictions on outside funding, like PTA, at a time when the district has a major deficit?
Thank you, Dr. Aguilera-Fort. As Dr. Sue shared, we developed the supplemental hiring guideline to provide clarity on how schools can use their site discretionary fundings, including PTA funds, to pay for additional staff. And Dr. Sue mentioned many types of additional staff that can be funded through outside discretionary dollars. We are balancing strategically leveraging our outside funding while at the same time ensuring that we have a qualified teacher in every classroom across all schools. Our goal is to balance both of those things at the same time.
Thank you, Ms. Lau-Smith. I would like to invite Ms. Amy Bear for the following question, which is asked by a parent at Lawton Alternative School. It reads the following way. Our school is a Title I school. We were told by the principal that we couldn't pay for our reading interventionists with our Title I funds. Shouldn't each side determine how to spend their money? My child has really benefited from the reading teacher, and so have many other students. If we as a district are trying to prioritize reading, why are we not continuing this extremely important role? Ms. Bear.
Thank you, Dr. Aguilar-Fort. Like many districts, we are also impacted by the nationwide teacher shortage. And as others have already said, our priority is to have a highly qualified teacher in every classroom across the district. We compiled the supplemental hiring guide to ensure that sites actually do have some discretion in how to spend their money. I really want to focus on the options that are allowed. Sites can use their discretionary dollars for instructional assistants, student advisors, family liaisons, school clerks, counselors, social workers, nurses, or assistant principals. In this case, Lawton may want to consider an A-series paraeducator position, which would support instruction in core academic subjects.
Thank you, Ms. Amy Bear. Now I would like to ask Dr. Su to respond to the following question. And this is from a parent at McKinley Elementary. It seems short-sighted to restrict the use of PTA funds to subsidize staff. Some parents will likely leave the district for a charter or private schools if PTAs cannot continue to fund prior staff levels. Why make these changes when PTA is funding these positions?
Well, I certainly hope that families do not leave the district. In fact, we're seeing an increase in our enrollment, and I hope to continue that trend. As I shared earlier, I know that families care deeply about your child's education. I assure you, so do we. We are very grateful for the PTA, PTO, PTSA's hard work and contribution at your child's school. The supplemental hiring guide allows you to pay for many different categories of additional staff. However, I do acknowledge that some families feel that the guide is a little restrictive. Please know that the bigger goal for the guide is for us, the district, so that we can be able to hire the qualified teachers that are so desperately needed in all of our classrooms right now. When we have teachers in the classroom, we will be able to lift all of our boats together. This is the only way that for us to achieve our bold and audacious goals of academic excellence. At the end of the day, we are a united and unified school district, and we have to come together to support our community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Su. Now we will transition into our next category of questions, which is hiring freeze and layoff. We received 44 questions, which accounts for 18% of the questions. We have heard about significant staffing cuts within SFUSD. How will this impact student-teacher ratios, and overall, how will this impact the quality of education, facilities, and support to students and families? I would like to invite Dr. Su again.
So for this, I want to share some bittersweet news with our community tonight. Due to the overwhelming popularity of the supplemental early retirement plan, I am truly grateful to say that we do not have to issue any preliminary layoff notices to our teachers across the district. This is really great news for us because we were hoping that and trying to figure out a way to preserve consistency of our teaching staff. And thank you so much to everyone who took the SERP option to help us so that we can now have this opportunity of having consistency in our teachers, in our in-classroom teachers. Unfortunately, we still have to notice counselors and paraeducators and other positions. We are still moving forward to consolidating our teaching positions to implement our school staffing model in which every classroom will have a qualified teacher. We are committed to our student outcomes. While these cuts are significant, once again, they represent 10% of our budget. We must work together to reimagine how we can use the remaining 90% of our budget to support our students. We will continue to invest in educators' professional development so that there can be high quality teachers in all of these classrooms so that we can lift all of our students to those great audacious goals that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sue. The next question is for Ms. Melly Lau-Smith and is from a parent at Aptos Middle School. Why is the district hampering schools by getting rid of assistant principal positions and pushing a burden onto already overworked principals?
Thank you. Both principals and assistant principals at our schools have really big jobs to do, and they do amazing work. Middle and high schools have been allocated assistant principal positions. And in fact, Aptos Middle School has been allocated 2 assistant principal positions. And in addition, all schools, including elementary schools, can use their site discretionary funding for an assistant principal position. The supplemental hiring guide provides clarity on the process to pay for it for an assistant principal position with funds, including PTA funds.
Thank you, Ms. Lau-Smith, and I would like you to stay on because the following question is also for you.
Thank you.
And this is from a parent at CIS de Avila School. How are nurses not seen as essential staff for schools? We have kids with diabetes at our school, and they need more immediate attention should anything go wrong.
Thank you. Nurses are absolutely essential staff at our schools, and they play a critical role and are essential for students with specialized healthcare needs. We are not reducing the number of school district nurses. We will continue to provide all students who require specialized nursing services, those services in their school site, at their school site. We are moving to a cohort model to allow for more equitable access and to reduce the need to contract out for agency nurses.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And now I would like to invite Ms. Amy Baer to respond to the following question, which is from an employee from Turcotte Marshall High School. If a school had a counselor with less seniority than a counselor who got consolidated from another site, is it possible for the counselor with less seniority at the current site be replaced by another counselor with higher seniority and same language skills? Or the principal could just have a say to keep the current staff, even if that person has less seniority?
Thanks
Ms.
for the question. In general, staff members with more seniority may bump another staff member in the same classification who has less seniority. The process of moving staff into different positions is governed by rules of the Education Code and through our collective bargaining agreements with our labor partners. HR has recently provided a consolidation guide to all sites. We will also be hosting informational webinars for site leaders who may have questions about the consolidation process next week on the 19th and 20th. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we are moving into our next category, which is budget balancing plan. We received 44 questions related to this topic. The first question, I will Dr. Sue and Ms. Nelly Lau-Smith to respond these questions. Dr. Sue, how do the proposed budget cuts to schools compare to any proposed budget cuts to central office?
It's a great question. We are right now reorganizing key central office functions as part of our budget reduction strategy. As I shared previously maybe in the February board meeting, I have asked all central office departments to propose a minimum of 20% reductions in staffing and contracts, with a priority to reduce management and director positions. Every central office certificated administrator have received a preliminary notice that they may be released or reassigned for the following school year. Next month, we will bring a central office reduction proposal to the Board of Education that will include reductions of classified central office administrators. Once again, just back in early February, the board allowed us to release temp certificated employees on one-year contracts, and also allowed us to release certificated employees on probationary status. And also on the February 25th meeting, the board authorized us to issue preliminary layoff notices to 395 certificated staff and 165 classified paraeducators. In the coming months, we will be requesting approval from the board to continue to provide preliminary notices to 43 central office classified administrators and 86 classified civil servants.
Thank you, Dr. Sue. Now we will move on to SFUSD school programs. And I would like to respond to the following question, which is asked by a parent at Lakeshore. How will teachers support the educational needs of their students and devise a curriculum for new split grade classes, such as combination second and third grade class? What guidance and support will be provided to make sure our students and teachers succeed? Number one, we recognize as a district that teaching combination grade levels will present new ways of planning and delivering the curriculum. That's a fact. Our district, SFUSD, has adopted a curricula that is standard-based, and that allows teachers to make instructional decisions based on the needs of the students in those grade levels. In terms of the specific support, we have instructional coaches that will continue supporting those teachers to differentiate and to manage the implementation of those grade level standards in those combination classes. At the same time, there is a robust professional development with specific guidance that will be provided to these teachers in those combination classes. And the next question is for Dr. Sue. And this is from a parent at Lowell High School and also at the Ruth Asawa School for the Arts. Here is the question, Dr. Sue. There was a proposal to close certain school sites to save money. And there is the current proposal for cuts. Is there a side-by-side comparison of saving from those two proposals? It will be good to see options for the district cuts, including the idea of consolidating schools.
So just to remind everyone, there are no school closure plans for school year 25-26. I am super excited that we are seeing an increase in our kindergarten applications and our transitional kindergarten applications. So just this year, in terms of applications, we received over 700 TK applications and over 150 kindergarten applications for our next school year. We are moving in the right direction. So before we start the closure conversation, we need to make sure we are maximizing our assets to the best use. To find classrooms for 700 transitional age kindergartens mean we have to go into all existing schools to see if there are classrooms that we can convert. So we need to be smart about using our current vacancies in our facilities. We also need to work really hard to make sure our operations are more efficient. And also, we need to put position controls into place. We need to have better oversight and accountability measures so that we are always mindful of how much money we're spending and towards what. So we have to continue to monitor our enrollment. I'm happy to know that it's trending in the right direction, and we need to make sure that we put clear position controls and accountability measures over our spending practices. I believe that if we do these things, we will be in a place where we will have a better handle on our budget and we'll be able to have clear understanding on next steps that are necessary to take for a school closure conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Su. Next, I would like to address questions about programs such as special education, language programs, and visual and performing arts. We received 26 questions representing about 10% of all of the questions submitted. And this is a question from a parent at Aptos and Diane Feinstein. How will IP's individual educational plans will be affected? What resources will be kept? What resources will be cut? As a reminder, the services agreed upon in a student individualized educational plan are required by law, and we must commit and implement those strategies and plans. We have a legal and moral obligation to make sure that students receiving special educational services have access to free and appropriate public education, which is also called FAPE. So we are committed to continue providing the resources and funding available to our students with IP. It is our responsibility. I would like to invite Dr. Su to help to enhance this response.
Yes, on top of just the legal mandates for us to ensure that we meet the needs of our special education students, we also have this opportunity to really, truly reimagine what would it take to strategically invest in our special education students. And this means we need to continue our work to strengthen the continuum of services in our early children, our youngest kiddos in our schools. I had this wonderful opportunity earlier this week to visit Shoestring out in the Bayview. And what they are doing there is magic. They are serving our transitional kindergartners and kindergarteners in tier 3 level type services so that these young people do not end up in higher need special education programs later on in their academic career. This is the kind of innovative investments that we need to make as a district so that we can, one, serve our students better to make sure that they get the services they need early, and two, make sure that we do not need to over identify young people when they're in middle school or high school into special education, because that's not appropriate either. So I am committed for us to really think about how we reinvest and reimagine services and funding for our youngest children in special education. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Su. And the following question is from a parent at Claire Lilienthal. Which student programs like arts, music, sports, special education, counseling are at risk of being reduced or eliminated? As stated before, we will continue to provide those services mandated by law and that we also deem our moral responsibility. Middle schools and high school students will continue to have counseling services and programs as we continue aligning those counseling services and allocation with contractual agreement and state guidelines. In San Francisco, we are fortunate to have PIF funding for our sports, library, and music programs. These programs will continue based on revenue projections and based on the enrollment for every single school. So we will continue with the programs. Now I need to move to the following question related to program as well, and this is from a parent at Leonard R. Flynn Elementary School where I was a principal at. I understand that there are plans to change the Spanish language immersion to a 50-50 model. The question is, what is the research and evidence that this model is effective? And also, why is this program being targeted for budget cuts? The number one piece is the program is not targeted for budget cuts. And San Francisco Unified School District is still committed to providing excellent multilingual programs to all of our students, to each and every student that enrolls in the programs. We are working with the DLAC and implementing these proposed changes, and that will help us to meet our legal obligation and to improve student outcomes for Spanish-speaking Latinx students. And most importantly, the 50-50 model will serve each and every student across languages and across backgrounds. Now I would like to invite Dr. Su to respond to the following question. And this one is related to long-term strategy. The first question is from a parent at Argonne Elementary. Dr. Su, here's the question. We are entering kindergarten in the fall, and we are questioning if SFUSD will be able to provide our child with the education and experiences we want and they deserve. What reassurances can you give us about the years ahead?
First off, thank you so much for choosing SFUSD. I feel like I'm, winning the lottery. Thank you for choosing us. It's really great to welcome more and more kindergartners into our school. But I do want to say, we still have 90% of our budget that is still intact to ensure that our school district is healthy and that we have the resources that's necessary to serve each and every student. In this new context, we will provide every classroom with a qualified teacher. Every classroom will have a qualified teacher. We will continue to provide our teachers with the professional development they need to be successful so that they can implement all of the new curriculum that we are rolling out. We will have full implementation of our literacy curriculum across our elementary programs. We will be adopting a new K-8 math curriculum. We are reorganizing central office so that we are aligning college and career readiness with high school. We are aligning data and research with curriculum and instruction. We are making sure that our operations make sense and that we are efficient in delivering the services that you as a parent and your child needs, so that your teachers can have a seamless experience in our district. This is what it means for our district to move into the next phase of work. This is the radical reimagination that needs to happen together. I want us to come together to really think and imagine with me how that would look like, how your kindergartner is going to experience their first day of school, how they're going to then work through all of their literacy programs and math, and then move on into middle school, and then be successful as a high school graduate of SFUSD. I truly believe this is possible. It's possible when we start now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Su. Somehow you anticipated the following question, so you responded a little bit about it, but let me read the specific question from a parent at CIS de Avila. How does SFUSD reconcile the immediate fiscal stabilization measures with a long-term strategy for school viability and budget balance? Specifically, can the board assure the community that these actions will definitely close the deficit and eliminate the possibility of school closures within the next 2 to 3 years? Or are these measures simply delaying inevitable future closures?
Great question. So first of all, in 2 years' time, we better not be where we are now. Hands down. We need to be in a much better place because we would have implemented our stabilization plan, which requires us to take very decisive and painful reductions in our budget, all because we need to get to a place where we will be stabilized. And once we are stabilized, we will have the ability to have the autonomy to make our own fiscal and funding decisions. So before we start conversations about school closures, we need to make sure that we focus on delivering a balanced budget and making sure that we utilize all of our assets to the best of our abilities. As I shared earlier, we have 700 new transitional kindergarteners coming into our school district. We need to find space for those students. And if the trend is going in the right direction, we need to find even more space in the future. So we need to be really proactive in thinking about how we do this. We also need to make hard decisions around our operations and how to achieve that level of efficiency that our staff and our students and families expect from us. We have to do a better job at maximizing our assets, at ensuring that we are accountable to what we say and what we do, and that we have better control over the work and accountability over the work that we do. We will continue to monitor the enrollment. We will continue to make sure that we are living within our means, and we will continue to radically reimagine what we will do with the remaining 90% of our budget, because that's how we're going to get to the goals of literacy proficiency, math proficiency, and college and career readiness for our students. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Su. this question is also for you.
Of course.
And this is from a parent at Giannini Middle School and Lowell High School. After completing the 113 million cut, what will be the source of income for San Francisco Unified School District so that we can be stable and then grow as needed?
So I just want to remind everyone that our budget right now is $1.2 billion, and that's capital B. It's comprised of 5% from the federal government, 70% from the state, and 20% from our city. And the 70% from the state is truly based on our enrollment. So if you think about it, 70% from our, and it's the 70% from the state, it comes from enrollment. What has happened over the last several years is that as our enrollment has stayed steady, our expenses has steadily increased, which then has created this big gap between our expenditure and our revenue, which is why we have to make this reduction. Once we make this reduction, hopefully what will happen is that our expenditure and our revenue will be in line with each other. And when that happens, we can then be out of our CDE sanctions that's happening right now. We have to do the really difficult job of making these reductions. But once we do, once we make the reductions, once we bring our expenditures in line with our revenues, we will then instill confidence in our community, in our system, because we will be able to say to our staff, there is stability and predictability in your employment, so please stay. Actually, more importantly, we can now recruit even more people to come because people will know this is a district that is stable, that is solvent, that will be able to manage our resources in the appropriate way. And when we have stability and predictability for our staff, that means we will then be able to provide stability and predictability for our students, because that is what young people need in order to grow, in order to learn, and in order to thrive. I firmly believe that if we do this and we make the really hard decisions to get through this, we will be at a place where there is going to be more confidence in not only our community, but hopefully in the external community who wants to invest in us, who wants to come back and give money to SFUSD to do a lot of that creative and innovative things that San Francisco has been known to do.
Thank you, Dr. Sue. And now we are getting to the end of our session. And here is a question from a parent, an employee actually, at Everett Middle School. How does the district plan to support both newcomer immigrant children and LGBTQ populations? Could you elaborate a little bit on these plans as we move forward?
First and foremost, San Francisco Unified School District is a sanctuary district within a sanctuary city. And that means a lot. It means that we have the protection of the law that the city has and the city instills. So that is why it's so important for us to have a strong partnership with our city partners. And the mayor has stated many times over and over, along with our city attorney, David Chu, that they are lockstep in sync with us in protecting our students, in making sure that we uphold our sanctuary laws and sanctuary rules. Public education is the bedrock of this democracy, of our democracy, and San Francisco Unified School District is the bedrock of San Francisco. Given the recent rhetoric at the federal level, I recognize that many, many people in our community are hurting, are scared, and I encourage you to stand strong. For decades, San Francisco Public Schools have been at the forefront of celebrating diversity among our students and affirming the rights of all students, regardless of their identity, background, or lived experiences. I will implement state laws and SFUSD policies to affirm the rights of all our students and staff to learn and grow in a welcoming atmosphere. We will work with the city and the state to ensure that we stay true to those values. We will not waver. In addition, the Queer Trans Parent Advisory Council was successfully launched in the fall, empowering families to advocate for our LGBTQ+ community. SFUSD will remain steadfast and laser focused in our work of educating all of our students, period.
Thank you for reaffirming that commitment, Dr. Sue. It's wonderful to hear that. Now, dear community members, dear parents, staff, we are closing our session for today. And we want to thank you for attending, for joining us. And as Dr. Sue mentioned at the beginning, this is just the start of the conversation. And it is only, oh, they close it. It is only the conversation, the end of tonight's program. So please remember, go to the Town Hall Conversation webpage. We'll continue with the survey questions and comments, and tonight's session will be posted alongside with the slide deck. Once again, thank you and have a wonderful evening.